Good morning, everyone. It's another live stream. Coffee. My sweet addiction. My one remaining vice. How's everybody doing today? So, as you may have been able to tell by the picture, the thumbnail picture for this live stream, not the title text, this stream is a trap. Hey Daniel. Hey Moondog. Hey Jibble. Kai the New. Another glorious day on Tyrol, it's true. Good Saturday for you, good for Sunday for me. There's the coffee. Yes, this is pure Irish cream coffee. Because I am in the mood for a lot of flavour this morning. Let me just pop out the chat so I can see what everybody's saying. There we go. That's much better. So today, as you may have seen from the last video that I posted, it was about Planeswalkers, Magic the Gathering, and its role in D&D and who the Planeswalkers are. And I've had some interesting comments, particularly from old school players and particularly from people who have been playing or following the lore of Magic the Gathering since the beginning. And there seems to be a consensus amongst the old grognards of Magic the Gathering that Planeswalkers used to be powerful, godlike beings, and now they've been nerfed to the point where they're basically whiny teenagers. Well, as for that discussion, I don't care, because gods actually are less useful in a D&D setting than a powerful character is. And I like the idea of player characters becoming planeswalkers. Similar in the way in Eberron they've handled the spell, the tattoos, the dragon marks, as a racial subclass of whatever you want to play. So you can play any character and it becomes a racial subclass of Planeswalker at a high level. So you basically take it like a feat option sort of thing. And I've got some of my old Magic the Gathering cards. I'm just looking at a Graxiplon. Unblockable unless defending player controls 3 or more creatures of the same creature type. This is one of my favourite cards. Quite expensive though. And Mistform Wall. I've got a lot of old Magic the Gathering cards and I checked out to see if any of them were valuable, and it turns out no, not really. I used to have a Vesuvan Doppelganger, but that got added to somebody else's collection. But that's fine. In fact, all of my expensive Magic cards got added to their collection. But they gave me a good playable amount. If anybody ever shows up with a deck of Magic cards, I could probably give them a slight run for their money. Axe Poison! Hey Trey. So, so it's the final week before my move. I went and saw the new Predator movie. I give it a 5 out of 5. No, actually, I give it a 5 out of 10. Sorry, I misspoke. It's like the bits of it that were more like the original Predator movie were good, and the stuff that was more like the graphic novels and things, not so good. I think possibly they tried to kowtow to the graphic novel and novel market a little bit too much. So it's like it's a little too complicated. Like, I don't know. If you're going to make a special movie about a book series or something like that, like Game of Thrones or whatever, then you should stick to doing that. Because if you deviate from the original movie lore into graphic novel lore, then you're just going to alienate people who haven't read the graphic novels. And if you make a movie about graphic novels or novels, well, people who read books that get turned into movies are never happy. Never. So who cares? Just make movies that you want to make about franchises that you love as a film director. Howdy y'all. Earthbind. Yeah. Yeah, it's nighttime in most parts of the Northern Hemisphere, I think, or quite a few bits of the Northern Hemisphere. Most of the places where I'm broadcasting to, anyway. No, you're not late. I just got here, Jacob. Read my question about the idea of a plane of acid being split between acid and base with a briny boiling ocean in between. As far as I know, it's like, don't think of it as a plane of chemical reactions. Think of it as a plane where oxygen is ripped out of things. So everything turns into an acidic substance in the plane of acid. So yeah, whatever. It all becomes acidic. It doesn't have the regular laws of physics. That's the whole point about the inner planes, is they don't conform to entropy. Yeah, it is. It's very hard to cross media, and Hollywood keeps making the mistake of trying to kowtow to special interest groups. Like, Hollywood is now marketing to Russia and China very clearly, for good reason, because they're buying a lot of stuff, and of course India. They're trying to break into like the Bollywood market and stuff. And the reasoning behind some of the sort of dumbed down plots and things that you see in movies is that they don't have a lot of the background of media that the people in the Western world do. So they don't get the clicky little in-jokes that refer to other movies. So those are basically removed from movie plots and things. And Hollywood keeps making the mistake of trying to bring in Eastern folklore and things like that, and then cast Hollywood blockbuster actors in it. Like, they're going to be attracted to, you know, Brad Pitt playing a samurai or something. It's just, it's cringy, really. How would I do slivers from Magic the Gathering? Essentially, I would have a big boss sliver with some regular slivers with like hit points and things who are more like strikers and skirmishers, who can get in a couple of good hits but can't take a lot of damage. And then I'd have minion slivers. So minions have 1 hit point, group area effect damage that they can avoid does no damage, and any damage that they take would take them out. But they still have the same sort of 2 hit and damage potential of the medium slivers. So that's how I would do it. Basically swarms. Yeah, it is the problem with great gaming is in general. Gaming and, well, gaming is a media as well. So, yeah, everything. You caught me right live, Robert. That's true. You've been experimenting with a plane of salt. Mm-hmm. Plane of bases. Good for basic campaigning. It's true. Trap acid. Ooh, maybe that could be added to the folklore of the channel. We've got axe poison and trap acid. Hollywood trying to pander to social justice warrior and feminists. That's the core of the problem. No, that's not a core of the problem. That's not the core of the problem. The core of the problem is the bullshit that lies underneath the activism. The activism itself is not a problem. The inclusion and diversity has never been a problem in Dungeons and Dragons. It's the aggression and the disingenuity of the intention behind the activism. So people who are honestly interested in inclusion in the hobby don't do it in a harmful fashion. They come in and they add to the hobby. They add their enthusiasm and passion and things to it. They just bowl their way in and everybody says, come on in, because you're obviously a huge fan. People who come into it with an agenda that want to like judge everything that everybody else is doing because they've got a massive chip on their shoulder, then that's a problem in anything. Anything. It doesn't matter who you are or what you're doing. If you have a massive chip on your shoulder and you've got a fundamental problem with whatever you're inserting yourself into, then you're going to screw it up. And everybody's going to know it. The problem is you can't point out this bullshit in this current climate of hysteria because you get labeled as a bad guy, a Nazi, whatever. That's not the problem. The activism isn't the problem. The inclusion and diversity isn't the problem. And we need to separate those two things, those two messages. So people who are trying to protect the hobby and preserve the awesomeness of it are not against diversity. We're against assholes. We're against assholes. It's very, very fucking different. And I think that needs to be emphasized and stressed. We're not against the message. We're against the messengers who come in with a massive chip on their shoulder, who are just trying to tear down everything. But I don't really want to talk about politics, because then this really would be a trap stream. Trap acid. Thank you also to the person who pointed out that it's not pronounced pyrexia, it's phyrexia. So it's a PH. Yeah, so that's great. I'm glad to be corrected, because phyrexia is one of my favorite things. And I wanted to address the old school grumps, old school D&D grumps, who are like, Magic the Gathering settings don't add anything. They're just cookie cutter molds that, you know, they don't add any flavor to the things. And the other person who commented, I think it was on one of the 5th edition boards on groups on Facebook, was that Magic the Gathering has all these bland, politically correct settings with nothing controversial and nothing new or innovative. Have you seen Phyrexia? Do you have any fucking idea how horrendous Phyrexia is? Like, the imagery on those cards alone got me kicked out of a Christian lady's house. That was how, like, Phyrexia is undead and like life and death, cybernetics, ripping and reusing body parts and things like that. It is horrendous. It's it's necromancy as a technology taken to the nth extreme, which we haven't seen in D&D yet, and I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's awesome. Necromancy as a technology is really cool as a concept. Your party unfortunately crashed your spelljamming ship SS Morgan Freeman into the Plane of Radiance. Oh no! Yeah, I agree with you, Robert. That's part of the problem too. Where they just come into it with the entirely the wrong intentions. Yeah, force-feeding politics. That's the problem. Turn up the bass. So love your videos and big into lore of Dungeons & Dragons. I was just wondering if you knew of any good places I could play with other people online, since the community around me is so small. Well, I live in New Zealand, so I'm a good test case for that, because the community of people that I play with is also quite small. In Hamilton here, I've been living for 10 years. The gaming groups, I would say there's probably a couple of hundred, maybe 300 or 400 people who play D&D on a regular basis. Just in this city alone, probably more. I don't really know. A lot of them just don't, you know, they find their little group and they don't really have anything to do with the social media and stuff like that. So we've got a Waikato, which is the region that I've been living in, a Waikato role-playing group on Facebook and things. We tried, and they've kicked off a convention and things like that, which was okay. Apparently it ran quite well. But most of the gaming and stuff that I've found is online. So if you can handle sitting in like a Discord server or Roll20, Fantasy Grounds, all those other sort of places, you can Skype, you can do Google Hangouts. In fact, back in the day, say 6 years ago, five or 6 years ago, we were really just getting into using Skype and Google Hangouts, and Google Hangouts was really good because it has a bunch of add-ons and things like that you could add. So there was dice rollers and things. It was almost as functional as Roll20 back in the day, and then they screwed it up, and Google Hangouts became the less preferred option because it was just nothing seemed to work quite right anymore. The developers didn't seem to realize that the potential that Google Hangouts had for the role-playing community. So definitely check out Facebook groups, Discord servers, channels, message boards, all sorts. Just search like your local area. So use Google to type in your area name and D&D groups, or meetup for D&D groups, and also use various sites for meetups and things like that. Definitely, for sure. I can't give you specifics, but I don't know exactly where you are or anything. My horror show. I'm not sure what you're talking about. About ads? Oh yeah, somebody asked me. Somebody had one of those comments about there's way too many ads on your videos, and I asked them, it's like just take a sip of your coffee, look out the window, and think for yourself for a moment. Who's paying me? Who's paying me? Not you. Google is. I'm sticking it to the man. Hail Vecna! Ravnica's looking really good, yeah. It's not conceptually a repackaged Sigil. I don't agree. It's got entirely different elements. Like Sigil, for instance, doesn't have a complicated underground world and tons of guilds and things operating under the surface. It's got a lot of portals and things, but it doesn't have cellars and basements and stuff. Ravnica is closer to Eberron. It's closer to the city of Sharn, perhaps, but like I say, we haven't seen a world city before. We haven't seen city on top of city on top of city sort of thing. It's more like Mega City 1, you know, from Judge Dredd. Yeah, D&D Beyond is good. It's getting better and better, actually. I avoid Twitter like the plague these days. I've seen absolute horrendous shit on Twitter. It really sours me to the entire medium, so you won't really see me interacting much on Twitter. Not when you have people attacking Matt Mercer, or like Frank Oz got attacked because he said that Bert and Ernie weren't gay, and he got roasted for it. It's just ridiculous. So no, I don't have anything to do with Twitter because it's just chock full of idiots. Like I honestly avoid a lot of the political stuff in D&D. I think I've talked more about political stuff on these live streams than I have on like any other situation. So I'm not normally that vocal about it. There's just a good opportunity to get the message out that not everybody is you know. There are moderates in the D&D community who believe in the message and believe in diversity, but also will criticize and chastise anybody who comes at the hobby with a hatchet. You know what I mean? I'm not sure. What are you talking about, Mr. My Horror Show? Oh, good. Well, that's what I like to hear. Yeah, there's a lot of people that watch my channel who haven't played D&D for ages, and I'm hoping one day, like, the more people that I hook back into the hobby, the better, honestly. Would I make a D&D campaign if the original D&D TV show in the 80s, you mean the cartoon? Yeah, well, there's obviously going to be a lot of scammers in anything that gets a larger and larger mainstream following. It just goes with the territory. Luckily, D&D players are very good at checking for traps and sensing motives. We make our insight checks very well. Thank you very much. You got a bad case of fixation on necromancers? Me too. Me too, sometimes. One of the places in Eberron is chock full of necromancy. It's really good. In fact, my friend Ian is very keen on that entire society. Any ideas on playing a kobold character and what your opinion on one? First of all, definitely watch my video on kobolds. I am a massive fan of kobolds. I always have been, to the point where my players in my campaigns firmly believe that I am incapable of running a campaign without at least one encounter with kobolds in it. Also, ropers. I spring ropers on people all the time. In fact, Matt Click will attest to my effectiveness of using ropers. Matt Click and various others. Yeah. I missed gaming with Matt Click and the Nerdarchy guys and those chaps. Maybe you could reach out an olive branch, guys. Because I'm certainly not going to. Endless Ocean depends on what kind of bard you want to play as. Normal bard who likes to sing and give buffs. Yeah. Bards, I've always played bards as scholars, rogue scholars and lore experts more than anything, really. They have access to spells and things. And they've got psychic talents, basically. That's, yeah. So they're schemers and manipulators. They can be. But it's a very open class to modifying it to exactly how you want it. You can play Bard as a thug. Yeah. Tricksters. Illusionists. Loki. Yeah, Loki was a bard. Kind of. He's certainly fond of getting up in front of a crowd of people and telling them to kneel. You're a forever DM. I got to play as a character last night and it got so boring. Can't stand people playing chaotic, stupid characters. The barbarian killed the messenger at the start of the session. Oh, yeah, I hate that. I hate that. Necromancer demon in modern times. Yeah, cast Detect Good and Evil. Cast Detect Good and Evil on the Kickstarter. Cast Sense Motive. Yeah, Thug Bards are awesome. The classic rock and roll bard, basically. Oh yeah, like we played a couple of gigs in Luskin and like, you know, then we did a couple of jobs and we had to skip town. What's that? Yeah, I play like the tambourine. You just can't picture playing as a humanoid. Really? Ravnica is coming out when is it? I know that I'm really looking forward to the Undermountain. I think that's the 2nd November. Let's check, shall we? Has anybody else's Google Chrome settings gone weird looking? Like, everything just seems kind of strange. D&D Beyond. Do-do-do. Shout out to the Taking 20 YouTube channel who just popped up when I typed in D&D Beyond. Thought I'd let you know that you popped up on my my Google there. Okay, so we're looking at Marketplace. I'm really quite happy with... oh, I have to log in again. I hate how it's tied in with Twitch. Like, you got to have a Twitch account. So I don't want a Twitch account. I don't want a Twitch stream. So Ravnica. Diddly-dee. View details. Oh, I've already pre-purchased it, so it doesn't tell me. Oh, yeah, here we go. November 9th. November 9th, 2018. Somebody's already probably said that in the chat. I bet. I bet you. Raised by Orcs. It's an update for Google. I hate it. They should never do that. October 5th. No. So November 9th is pretty close. A couple of weeks, a few weeks. Yeah, sci-fi or steampunk setting would be is pretty cool. Like you can play on the island of Lantern in Torrell, and they've got sort of steampunk stuff. Strums ukulele with evil intent. Yo, bro, give me a gold or I'll sing you to death. Hey, bro, you like your memories? It'd be a shame if something was to happen to them. You want an illusion of your dead ex-wife, your dead wife, looking in your window every night? Yeah, pay up, buddy. Bards could be terrifying. When you think about it, you could really play an evil bard. You're not crazy about the new set, but you want to see how the Ravnica D&D setting turns out. Oh, they've got a new set of magic cards. Yeah. Personally, I wouldn't buy them because I've seen the quartering Jeremy talking about the quality of the cards, and they look absolutely terrible. I don't know what happened with Wizards of the Coast, and they must have bought some secondhand wood or something. I don't know, because the paper products they've been putting out lately are terrible. Oh, I also bought a bunch of the Knowles' miniatures because I saw they had a bunch of townsfolk, essentially. Townsfolk, there was some nobles, like bartenders, kids, town guards, things like that. They're really good. So if you want to pick up some of those. AJ, would you prefer AJ Irwin or Steve Pickett for a tribute NPC? Sage specializes in ecology and monster anatomy. I would go with AJ Irwin, definitely. Thank you for that. That's lovely. Just a reminder, everybody, this is a monetized channel, and you can super chat if you feel the desire to. If you want a specific theme for a video, a super chat is a good way to make me instantly make a video for you. Mr. Fluga. No, mostly I don't. I watch, occasionally I'll watch like 5 minutes or 10 minutes of something just to check it out. What was I watching? I was watching The Crafting Muse, and she was gaming with a guy with a big beard. I forgot his name. He runs a pretty good channel, and that was pretty good. Like, their game was pretty interesting. They were, yeah. He's a really good DM, actually. I'll find out what his name is. Where are we? Let's type in. Also, I've been checking out Etherhub for Magic the Gathering lore. The Crafting Muse. Shout out to the Crafting Muse. Was that actually on her channel? No, it was somebody else's channel, obviously. He's on my list of... Also, shout out to the Arcane Forge. Josh is over in the States right now. Devious Dungeons? Devious Dungeon Painting? No, that's Brad. Doodly-doo. Shout out to Frank Frey. It's not Keith. Shout out to Man Shorts. They've been streaming games as well, or uploading games. Where is it? Shout out to the Pair of Geeks and the Players Tavern. My apologies. I'll have to find it later. It didn't pop up straight away. But I also watch, as I've mentioned many times, Acquisitions Incorporated. What else was I going to talk about? The Cookie Cutter Myth, D&D Traps, and Planeswalkers. So Planeswalkers, I like the idea of Planeswalkers being as a racial subclass. So instead of being like, you'd be a dwarf, and instead of being a hill dwarf or a mountain dwarf, you'd be a dwarf Planeswalker. So you could start off as a dwarf hill dwarf, and then when you get to level 15 and above, switch over to a mountain dwarf planeswalker. So it's like an extra racial type that gets added on there. Perhaps, I don't know. But there'd need to be something which kicks off that spark. So you'd have something like a random roll table for some sort of trauma or event which sparks your planeswalker talent. Oh, okay. Thanks for pointing that out, my horror show. AJ, didn't you remember? Well, clearly I don't. I made a complaint about the ads. I'm sorry I got triggered because I noticed everybody put like 10 ads. Then you explain why. I would like to apologize to twice. Oh, well, it's fine. Don't worry about it, man. So usually my ads are my videos, because my videos are quite long, quite often like 15 to 20 minutes, sometimes even half an hour long. It seems at first glance that I've got a lot of ads on there, but in actual fact, most of them are usually about 10 minutes apart. I try to put them at about 2 minutes 30 and then like 12:30. And sometimes if the video is real long, there'll be another one at the end of the video, or there'll be one right at the start and the end of the video, and like one or two in the middle. But like you look at PewDiePie's channel, for instance, his videos are around 10 minutes long, and he'll have two or three ads in there, and he's earning mega bucks from his channel. Hey, November Mine, thank you. Talk about natural environment traps. Natural environment traps, you mean like, so somebody who's using stuff in the environment to build traps, like the Ewoks building the log slamming traps, and like things that roll down hills and stuff using gravity, things that you find in the environment. Is that what you're talking about? Any chance you might make some first edition videos? Probably not. Like, I talk about stuff that's come through from first edition into 5th edition, but the vast majority of people are playing 5th edition D&D. So there just isn't the audience for it. I could talk about the origins of things in 1st edition, and how different 1st edition is from the current game in certain respects, but I wouldn't make videos which are solely aimed at the first edition or 2nd edition audience, because it's just not big enough. It's just, yeah, it would just turn off everybody else who's watching my regular content. It would be too much of a jarring shock from what I usually do. Also, I don't really, although I've gotten a good response, and enough of a good response now from that last Encounters video and things to talk more about how you run 5th edition games, or how I run 5th edition games. So I will be carrying on making stuff like that. That's also a little bit of a departure from what I do normally. So a lot of people who watch my videos for the lore and the stories and the pictures and things like that, they don't really necessarily watch my videos for D&D crunch, for rules and stuff. But of course, I make the videos for people who are playing the game or want to play the game. So, so I've always included stuff for rules and things like that as well. Even more so than dry grass Dragonlord, things like powdered flour that's floating around the atmosphere of a room or something like that. When you touch that off, it goes up like it's explosive. Granaries and things like that explode. Flour mills and things explode because of the flammable material mixed in with the air. So they burn real fast to the point where they explode. They're not high explosives, so the explosion is not supersonic, but it's still a pretty wicked explosion because heat expands and blows apart whatever it's in. Steel Dragons, how would I make Steel Dragons playable in 5th edition? That's kind of like a Rifts question, because you can play dragons as player characters in Rifts. So you back in 3rd edition, 3.5, they had a book called Savage Species, and what they do is they adjust the level of the character class to fit with the benefits that the monstrous race starts out with. So obviously, as a dragon, you're going to have breath weapon, natural armor, abilities with magic, things like that. So you essentially have some sorceress traits and stuff like that. And you've got resistance to certain types of damage, and you've got extraordinary senses like dark vision and things. And the ability to fly is one of the major ones. So unless you want to start out as a hatchling, which has got like, I don't know, 16 hit points or less, then you need to essentially, you get locked in place at 1st level as a character for a few levels, and then you start to progress afterwards. So the other option is you unlock your draconic traits with feats. So instead of increasing your ability scores and things, you select racial feats that give you draconic abilities. So you could take other feats as well. So you could be a dragon sharpshooter, but you wouldn't have developed your draconicness as much. So that would give you stuff like extra flight speed, mastery with your breath weapon, the ability to apply meta magic feats to your breath weapon, and stuff like that. So yeah, it can be done, and you can balance it, but obviously it's going to be controversial and really up to the politics of your table. You love the recent vids, good. There have been elf and Dragon planeswalkers? How about ogres? Yeah. I mean, planeswalking wouldn't necessarily be tied in with intelligence. It's a sorceress ability, so you just do it by feel. So it's not tied in with your intelligence. It would be probably more like a constitution or a charisma tie-in. So yeah, you could have thugs who are planeswalkers. I mean, there's a lot of monsters that are non-intelligent which can transition between the planes. A kobold encounter video, I'll be happy to. Yeah, kobolds and numbers, kobolds and cover, kobolds and their use of fire and acid and filth fever, other parasites and things like that, like the ability of kobolds to round up and use other creatures. Yeah, it's just devastating. And being able to control the battle area by using pits and partitions, oil slicks, pools of fire, things like that. Kobolds are really good at that stuff. How would I use an Oberth Lord in a game? Essentially like a Demon Lord, just like a Demon Lord. They'd have some access to some very old and forgotten knowledge. So Oberths would know stuff like, you know, how to summon Cthulhu-esque like horrors. How to open and close breaches to the Far Realm, for instance. Angrath in 5th edition. I'm not familiar with Angrath. That name rings a bell. Team Chaotic Neutral reporting for duty. It's true. I recently had a role-playing session. It was yesterday, in fact, with Jada and Bryce and Axe Poison and some others. And yeah, Bryce died. Bryce's character got killed. It was great. I mean, you know, great from a role-playing and story aspect. Got killed by an undead thing. It's all nice and all, but what about dragons? What about dragons? Yeah, Gold Dragon Hatchling started as the equivalent of a first level character. Well, yeah. I mean, I had one campaign session where the player characters were, I think, like 3rd or 5th level or so, and a Black Dragon Hatchling was canny enough to both avoid getting killed by them when it first hatched. It killed almost immediately as soon as it hatched. Killed a poor lady in an alleyway. And then very quickly manipulated them completely and took over the city. And that was just a hatchling. What about dragons? Shadowversity. I've got to watch more of Shadowversity. I get mentioned about him all the time. Tucker's Kobolds, yeah. Tucker's Kobolds, it would be an awesome video. Not quite 50 years of D&D. Has it been 50 years? Almost. Man, that makes me feel old. Yes, I am going to do a video about the Chaos Dragon of Limbo. Again, Pokemon, I need to do more research before I can give you answers on Magic the Gathering stuff. Obviously, I've got a lot of research to do. There is some really good wikis on Magic the Gathering stuff, all the monsters and things like that. Like, I've only seen names and pictures and things. I haven't read any of the books and things. I'm still reading books on Dungeons and Dragons. Currently reading through Streams of Silver, Halfling's Gem, and the Crystal Shard. Also, shout out to local game store where I went in and spent some money. Fantasy Rearmed videos. Yeah, my only issue with Shadowversity's videos is they're a little long-winded. I know that's rich coming from me, but I tend to pack a lot of information quite densely into my videos, and I don't repeat myself. Yeah, I think maybe Shadowversity could do with some script writing. Otherwise, he's like a very gifted orator and presenter of information, but you know, I need to condense things down. Also, like, I've got my own style. I don't really want to be influenced by other people who are talking about the same sort of stuff. Like, I'll watch Jordan's videos months and months after I've made similar sort of things, But Jordan and I, like, he does really good lore videos about locations and people and things like that. His series on the gods were really good. And people ask me to make sort of similar videos to that, and I'm just like, Jordan does really good videos. You know, he does much better than I would. You're trying to finish reading Temple of Elemental Evil at the moment. Is anybody currently reading the Dragonlance novels? Oh, they're more on topic than most. Okay, I'll check them out. So, non-sentient animals or mindless undead would not be planeswalkers. Well, no. I mean, yeah, mindless undead generally don't planeswalk. Like, they'll shift between the ethereal plane. So you can go from the deep ethereal. It's like the ethereal plane is a border plane, so it's possible for undead creatures to transition from one plane of existence to another by going from the border ethereal, slipping into the deep ethereal, traveling across there to another border ethereal plane, and going into another plane of existence. So they can just wander. If they are capable of wandering in and out of the border ethereal, then they're capable of traveling between different planes of existence. So in that respect, they can be planeswalkers, but not to the same extent that they don't transition directly from one plane of existence to another. And as for animals, unless it's naturally got that ability to do so, which is shared by all of those animals, then, or something extraordinary has happened to it, so it's received some sort of mutation, then yeah, I agree with you. You read Dragonlance, or you're currently reading Dragonlance? Yeah. Oh, I consumed all sorts of fantasy novels when I was younger, including the Gore series of novels. Bit controversial. Talking of social justice warrior politics, the Gore novels. Has anybody read any of the Gore novels? There's a lot of them. There's also a Gore RPG, which is currently on sale now. Like, you can buy it right now. Yeah. Weiss and Hickman were prolific. A really good partnership. Good writing. Gore, yeah. So Gore is a good case in point of something where it's been turned into something else by alternative groups. I read it as like a young man, like barely even a teenager, and first of all, it hasn't influenced the way that I think about gender and things like that at all. I took it as the fantasy that it was. It had no relation to real world stuff. It's a fantasy world. I've always been able to completely separate fantasy from reality. And Gore is a perfect example of how D&D takes misogyny and stuff like that to an extreme in some regards. But it's contextualized in that it's a fantasy alien world not related to Earth at all. And yeah, like, but of course my attitude towards it got shaded in the standoffish sort of point of view. Like, I probably wouldn't buy the world book and stuff, and I probably wouldn't run Gore RPGs and stuff because of the connotations that it would place on me that I'm running a Gore campaign. But it throws away so much really good other stuff. You know, like the board games and stuff that they would play there, and that whole gladiatorial sort of aspect of it, and it's like some of the creatures and monsters and politics and stuff. You know, I really enjoyed the Gore books. Yeah, well, if you don't know what I'm talking about, Google it, and you'll run into a whole world of intriguing politics. I don't think so, Ricky. No, Gore. So Gore is also a BDSM trope now as well, apparently. Like a sub-dom genre. I can understand why. Lock them up with a board kender. True. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, Robert. It's problematic when when something that you love gets taken over by something else entirely. Well, put on safe search before you look up gore on Google, okay? As I just mentioned, it's also associated with misogynistic sub-dom genre. But back then, you know, these days those books wouldn't even be published. These days those books wouldn't even be published. Thank you. Endless Ocean. 60 human wizards versus one young spellweaver. Well, tricky. My favourite Norse deity, Tyr, for justice. Because I would put my hand into Fenrir's mouth to protect you. Yeah, I'm exactly the same way, X-Poison. It is entirely missing the point. And it's the same hysteria. It's exactly the same hysteria that was the Satanic Panic during the 80s, where people cannot separate fantasy from reality. They can't separate politics and make-believe from offence and social justice. They just can't do it. And what I'm saying is, if they can't do that, they have no business in this hobby. Simple. It's a huge chip on their shoulder. It's a fundamental building block of fantasy that they are missing in the head. I mean, there are so many people who are of faith who play D&D these days. Absolutely. And there always has been. And these are people that can separate fantasy from reality. Or even one fantasy from another fantasy, if you want to put it that way. Yeah, I've been looking up SCP before anybody, Damien. I was around when it first began. Back when there was like 300 of them. In fact, somebody told me what SCP was, because I didn't recognize the anagram or whatever. And that whole like Warehouse 13 is the entire thing. No, not G-O-R-E, it's G-O-R. Thank you, Pokemon. That's interesting, Jacob. Tuesday, yeah. As opposed to Thursday. Thor. Or Woden's Day, Wednesday. I think it's great that the names of the week are follow on from my original culture. My ancestral culture, I should say. I mean, I'm not Norwegian. Secure, contain, and protect. Yes. Yeah. Well, it's like, you know, it's starting to get more and more mainstream. So let's see what happens. Dark Ones. Yeah. Okay. Definitely a good chance of that. I've been neglecting my list lately. And again, I apologise once more for the disruptions to everything that's happening this last couple of weeks of the month, because I'm literally going to be moving out of here in a few days. And I mean, it's not logistically that difficult to get things done. It's just mentally difficult to immerse myself completely into the work when I'm stressing about leaving friends and places and things. Like yesterday I went into town just to wander around and look at all the shops and stuff because I'm not going to see them again for a very long time. And tonight I'm going out to dinner with my friends for the last time. And for many of them I'll never see them again. Probably. Dark ones. I haven't made a video on draconians either. Really got to get onto that. And gorgons. I've had a request here for kitsune for a very long time. And I've got to do a more complete series on oozes at some stage as well. Haven't done harpies. Haven't done sirens. Aurum Vorax is a classic monster. Eidolons, both the original and the new version. The Pegasus. Haven't done a video on Pegasus yet. Or the Kraken. So, or the Satyr. Or the Beanlock. Or the Bladelings. Or the Phailok. There's the dark ones right there. Big marker next to you. Sneaky darklings. Darklings are great. Like I like what they've done with them in 5th edition actually. It's always hard to say goodbye. No, actually, it's not. I've been around long enough that I realise that friends come and go. Even very good friends come and go in your life, and that this is a natural transition. That I'm going from one place to another, and in between, I'm dedicating myself very much to this channel and all of you. So, for the next 5 years or so, maybe you'll see when this channel is going to explode somewhat. Release the Kraken. Kaz the Minotaur from Dragonlance is the reason why I play Minotaurs so much. Yeah, he's a very cool character. Obox Ob, yes. Obox Ob is interesting. Like, he's not quite like any other thing, really. He's more like a gestalt. Yeah, he's an aspect of the Abyss. Yeah, it's like treating the Abyss as an entity. Can you explain why the change into lawful good when it's chaotic good in every other edition? What is November Mind? You lost me. You're most welcome. That's true, Aaron. Yeah. Friends come and go, but my YouTube will last forever. My legacy. And it's growing and growing. What can you do with activated charcoal? Fertilize your garden with it. Don't eat it. It's ridiculous. You know when they say that the term getting your stomach pumped in hospital, all they do is they pump you full of activated charcoal. They don't actually remove contents from your stomach. They just pump you full of activated charcoal. It's horrific. So yeah, it's a fate worse than death. Yeah. Like, I know Dungeons and Dragons, so wherever I go in the world, I can find good friends. Because I've got D&D. Oh, I see. Lawful good in 5th edition and chaotic good in every other edition. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely chaotic. Definitely. If they were lawful good, they would stick around and look after communities and things like that. They wouldn't. They're obviously chaotic by their very transitory nature. Yeah. The Twisted Rune. Yeah. Also, the story of El Tab, and yeah, because there's cabals of liches and things, and in fact, the Crystal Shard series that I'm reading at the moment is all about, like, that started off with a cabal of liches, much like the Twisted Rune, like you mentioned. Yeah, don't eat poison, because you'll get your stomach pumped full. Ugh, it's horrible. Guess what? Activated charcoal doesn't help with. True. Trap acid. Trap acid. It's an acid. It's a little bit unsure of itself. I've never felt completely at home in this current jar. Oh, it's a bubblish glass of champagne. No, it's trap acid. Yeah, gas mask filters, exactly. So it absorbs stuff. I mean, when you think about it, if you're eating stuff with activated charcoal in it, it's ripping stuff out of your body as a potent, what is it, like an antioxidant type thing. I mean, God only knows what that's doing to the nutrition absorption in your intestine. It's horrific. Because your internal organs, like your internal lining of your digestive system, is an ecosystem that you need to maintain. It's a forest. It's a coral reef of germs, good germs, and they do most of the digestion for you. And then you want to cover them in charcoal. Why? It's crazy. Activated charcoal is a minor ingredient in axe poison. Well, it's in the process. What creatures in Magic the Gathering would warlocks make a pact with anyway? Well, you could probably make pacts with planeswalkers, honestly. Ugh. Admiral Akbar is your DM spirit animal. That's a trap. Concentrate all firepower. We can't withstand firepower of that magnitude. It's a mimic. That's right. It's a clear mimic. A transparent mimic. It's like, is that a pane of glass? Oh, look out the window. Transparent mimic. Yeah, exactly, Danny. Like I worked as I used to replace the stock in hospital ward and ICU, and yeah, they had that sort of stuff there, all sorts of medical supplies. Boring job though, honestly. Oh, Mr. Tarask is another channel I've been checking out lately. It's got potential, that channel. If I gave you 4 levels and 5,000 gold pieces, how can you make a weapon of mass destruction in 10 days? I'd go out and buy 2 bags of holding. There should be a law against those things. Charcoal elemental. Exactly. Oh, you do? That's interesting, Robert. So it absorbs oxygen. Yeah. Don't watch those videos, Greenside. You've gone to a strange place. Yeah, exactly. If you convince the Phyrexian praetors that you're better off as an independent servant and not part of their collective, then maybe. Or you could make an agreement that eventually you will become a component in their overall scheme. But in the meantime, they give you power as say, I need to be enriched. I need to, like, if you give me power, I can progress in level, and then I will become a more powerful component in the Phyrexian machine. Then, yeah, possibly. Portable bag of holding, yep. So one of the things I saw was, it was basically like an arrow with the shaft in the middle of it, and the arrow had a bag of holding pointed back this way, and you'd fire it at something, and when it impacts, a portable hole goes flying from into the the bag of holding. Boom! So it's an interdimensional exploding arrowhead. Absolutely devastating. Yeah, you can store undead in a bag of holding, for sure. What do they call those things? Crawling claws. A bag of holding full of crawling claws. Dump them out in somewhere. Chopper, sick balls. Yep, for sure. There's dungeons inside dead purple worms, for instance, of gigantic size. And similar to when, like, if you're running a Planescape campaign, or sorry, a Spelljammer campaign, and you fly inside an asteroid that's actually a living entity that's floating around in space, in wild space, that's quite possible. How about 7 levels and 25,000 gold pieces with Vorpal Sword? Buy 4 Vorpal Swords. No. Buy 2 or 3 Vorpal Swords with a bunch of flying swords, and then weld them together at the pommel. Turn it into a flying guillotine. A spinning saw of death. Phyrexian. Yeah, the tower's a mimic. So, yeah, like the glaive from Krull, except it's like a combination of flying swords. I suppose you could enchant a Vorpal sword to fly. Why would you even need the handle? Just have a Vorpal blade that's enchanted to fly and animate itself and move around. So it's just a blade, like a razor that's flying through the air. A fidget spinner, yeah. Fidget spinner of doom! Three leaders of the mighty empire are discussing legislation. A hot woman walks into the room. 5 months later, the empire's in civil war. Are you talking about Troy? The sacking of Troy? Because that's kind of how that started. Can be, particularly if you unscrew the pommel and throw it at somebody's face and then stab them. That's a legitimate tactic they used back in the day. Apparently, it's in one of the manuscripts for HEMA. Pizza with a portable hole baked into the crust and then filled a 10-foot square with more pizza covered in cheese and rebaked till golden. Why do you have to talk about pizza? I'm in the later stages of a diet right now. In fact, I'm going to hungus out when I... Hungus, it's a Kiwi term. I'm going to eat a lot when I go to a Turkish restaurant tonight. Baba ganoush. End them rightly. Yeah, that's right. Flying rays with Vorpal stingers in their tails. What? Well... No. Green Scythe, they don't. You can have a flying weapon that doesn't return. It just flies around, does its own thing. Anyway, everyone. It's been an hour. As you know, these streams only go for an hour. Thank you for the super chat. I will catch you all on possibly on your Wednesday. Let me just double check that. Make sure that I'm not. Let's see. Yeah, so there'll be another live stream in a few days' time, and that will probably be... It depends on what my internet connection at the new place is going to be like. I'll try and live stream if I can, but I might not be able to. I might not be able to, so this might be the second to last live stream in quite some time. Thanks, Oi Susie. Fargrim. There's always somebody that shows up late. There's always somebody that shows up right at the end of it and says, what? It's like the same time every time. It's the same time all the time. If an epic dragon age is left in the Shadowfell, will it turn into an epic shadow dragon, and could a warlock make a pact with it? Yes. Yep, for sure. Also, things can stay in the Shadowfell and not turn into shadow versions. I will have a nice dinner. Thank you, Green Scythe. Yep, it was a trap. Alrighty. Catch you later, everybody. Have fun. Happy gaming. Be nice to each other. Leave your politics at the door. I'm going to go and enjoy this coffee out in the spring sunshine. See ya.